Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and I am a holistic health coach, and I've been studying health and healing and working with people to feel good in their bodies and create more health for themselves for the past 10 years. So I am currently 20 weeks pregnant, and today I want to share with you some of the ways I prepared myself mentally for pregnancy. Before I get started, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Erin with 2 N's. I will also link that below. And be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want more content about holistic health and natural pregnancy. I actually have a pregnancy playlist, so you can check that out as well. So before we jump into the ways that I have mentally prepared myself for this journey, I just want to acknowledge that we really don't see basically any positive, calm, beautiful, sacred examples of birth. We see movies and TV where there's traumatic births, women screaming her head off in pain, dying, all of these like worst case scenarios. So I personally had a lot of fear about pregnancy and birth. And if you do, I mean, that's totally normal based on what we're programmed to believe birth is. And because I'm also someone who's very sensitive to changes and things in my body. I've been through a lot of trauma. I've been through a lot of intensity and health issues when it comes to my body. So my body has been just like this very tender topic for me, which I think is probably the reason I got into health coaching and probably the reason it's taken me so long to decide that I even wanted children. So I knew personally it was really important for me to ingest some more positive birth stories so that I could reprogram my mind around this experience and begin to see birth as something that could be positive, beautiful, and empowering. So for me, these are the ways that I personally released a ton of fear around birth and pregnancy, and have actually come to a place with it all where I feel really at peace with the process. I feel like I really trust my body to know exactly what to do, trust the changes that are happening in my body. Not to say that I'm 100% free of stress and fear, but I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, before I was a 9 or a 10, now I'm probably a 2. So I have my days, I have my moments, but generally I feel like really trusting of the process and my body, which is an amazing turnaround for me. So if that resonates with you, if you're someone that feels really fearful or stressful around pregnancy or birth or both, I really hope this video can support you. I also want to say that this is what worked for me, not to say that this is the perfect list or the right way to do it, but I just hope that you can find something on this list, even if it's just one thing that resonates for you. You may need something different than what I need. This is just me sharing my experience in the hope that there's something here that can be helpful for you. So the first thing I did to mentally prepare myself for pregnancy and birth was learning about birth itself and learning about the Western medical system and how the Western medical system treats birth. So disclaimer, if you've watched any of my videos before, you already know this, but I have a little bit of a strained relationship with Western medicine. And while I believe it definitely has its benefits in certain scenarios, I also believe that there's a lot of unnecessary harm that gets done, trauma that gets created within the system. So for me, it was really important to learn about all of the different things that get offered in the Western medical system, all of the different things that get pushed on women within the system, so that I could do my research and so that I could be educated and know whether or not those things are right for me or not. Because if you don't know what your options are, then you don't have any. Because you're going to be in a moment of, oh my God, what do I do? And it's just going to be offered to you. And of course, what are you going to do? You're not going to say, oh, hold on, let me go do my research, So it was so important to me to not feel like I was just walking blindly into a doctor's office and saying, okay, you just tell me what to do. Like, I need to know what's going on too, because I don't fully just trust my life and my baby's life with some doctor I don't know. with anybody, really. So for me, that was hugely, hugely important. For example, things like understanding what is Pitocin, what are the risks of Pitocin, the risks of ultrasound, induction, delayed cord clamping, breech birth, the vitamin K shot they give, epidurals, and on and on and on. So all of these things that are a part of the Western medical system when it comes to birth and pregnancy, I did not just want to fully trust that they were all safe and right for me and my baby. I wanted to actually really know what are the true risks behind these things, and are these really right for me? And I'll talk in a moment about how I did that, how I learned about all of these different things and what they were and if they're right for me. The next thing I want to mention before I go into that is I wanted to learn about physiological birth. So physiological birth is not what happens in the Western medical system, not what happens with your doctor, but what happens with mammals. When mammals go into birth, what are the things that a mammal needs in order to have a peaceful, optimal, natural, successful birth? Before all of our ancestors had doctors and Western medicine, this is how all our ancestors came into being. There was no ultrasounds, there was no doctor's offices, right? So how does birth work without all of that noise? I wanted to know. I wanted to learn about all of the hormones, the cascade of hormones, and just all of the different things that we're not taught that are really just incredible and amazing parts of our human physiology that we generally don't learn about and don't know and take for granted. And I wanted to really know what are all these pieces so that I could feel empowered in my body, so that I could trust my body and not feel fear. I feel like the fear piece, at least for me, is twofold. One, from seeing so much trauma, seeing all these stories, movies, TV, media, all traumatic birth stories. First, that's where a lot of the fear comes from. Second, actually, so there's three. Second, people sharing their traumatic birth stories with you, with other people. And then third, just not knowing. For me, when I don't know about something, when I'm not educated about it, my mind fills in the gaps, typically with incorrect information or unconstructive information or fear, because it's just the unknown, right? So I wanted to replace those gaps and those holes in my own knowledge with the truth of what actually happens physiologically and what my body can do. So for me, that was huge, and probably one of the biggest pieces was educating myself around the Western medical system and physiological birth itself, period. So how did I do that? I took a course called The Complete Guide to Freebirth through the Freebirth Society. So this course is an online course. It's self-paced, where you can go through and learn about all these different aspects of birth. And you can actually learn how to birth, if you so choose, outside of the Western medical system. Even if you don't, though, even if you do still want to birth with a doctor or a midwife or whatever it is, I just feel like this program is so important because it educates us women about our bodies and about the process of birth and about all the different things, as I said, that are mentioned within the system. So that when someone says, hey, do you want this genetic testing? Or hey, do you want this Pitocin? Or hey, we want to induce you, or whatever it is, you understand what physiological birth is, how it works, what they're offering you, and what the risks are. We all should have that information so that we're not blindly walking in to scenarios where we don't have time to make educated choices. We don't have time to educate ourselves. For me personally, I don't fully align with the system, and I know doctors have different values and different ways that they see things that's different from me. So I want to be the leader in my choices, and I don't want to be making snap decisions in stressful moments. I want to be fully educated. I want to walk into this experience feeling like I know what's going on. That's just me though. That's just me. Okay, so the complete guide to free birth by the Freebirth Society. I will link that course below. Highly, highly recommend, seriously, for every single woman who is growing a baby, birthing a baby. These are all things that we need to know, regardless of your choices and how you want to give birth. This is just all amazing information that we should all as women know. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I could go on. I'm so passionate about this course, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, so second is I found it so important and so helpful to listen to positive birth stories. There's so much trauma that happens, and so therefore gets shared around birth. And so we're just seeing all of this trauma, fear. It's like, of course we have fear. So it is so important to seek out and ingest positive birth stories, positive and empowering stories around birth. So how I did this, I'm going to recommend to you 5 different birth podcasts. First is the Freebirth Society podcast. They're the ones that do that course that I mentioned. So they have an amazing podcast. Second of all, the Positive Birth Stories podcast. Check that out. There's also the Birth Medicine podcast. There's the Birthful Podcast, and there's Taking Back Birth podcast. So I would suggest checking out any of those podcasts or any other place that you find that you can absorb positive birth stories. Okay, number 3, reading positive books about empowered pregnancy and birth. So I have, if you're on Goodreads, if you're not on Goodreads, first of all, I highly recommend it. It's just a website where you can track books that you're interested in reading, books that you're currently reading. You can rate them, and you can make different shelves of books that you want to read in the future. I find this a great way when I hear about a cool book. I just, put it on my to read in the future list, and then I don't forget about them. I also have made a whole reading list of birth and pregnancy books that are all positive books. So a couple to name, Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering, Orgasmic Birth is an amazing one I just finished. There's lots of positive birth stories in there as well. Ina May's Guide to Childbirth is a great one. There's tons of birth stories in there. So I will link my Goodreads birth book list in the description below. Go check that out. So next I would say cultivating a deep appreciation for my body and listening to my body. This has been 36-year journey for me, but really the last 10 years has been such a process of me listening to my body. And, when it comes to everything, just trusting my body, listening to my body, loving and appreciating what my body does for me, and listening to the messages that she has, and listening to, what I'm feeling in my body. So if you can cultivate a deep sense of appreciation, love, and respect for your body and the messages that it is giving to you, then I feel like that is a beautiful state to go into pregnancy and birth with. And if that is something that you want support with, because I wish I could just point you to a resource for that, but unfortunately it's not that easy, but that is what I do in my coaching work. And so if that is something that feels resonant to you, that you want, that you're like, yes, I want that, whether it's for pregnancy, birth, or just your life, check out the links in my description where I'll have information on how to do one-on-one coaching with me, because that is what I'm so passionate about, and a huge part of why I feel extra prepared for pregnancy and birth. Okay, number 5 is creating boundaries around people sharing their trauma, opinions, and advice. Whew. Birth and pregnancy is a very emotionally charged topic, as I'm sure you're aware, because there is so much trauma that people go through, legitimate trauma. And so I have collected a few statements, so to speak, that I have practiced in varying ways with my family, friends, people in my life. And so I'm just going to share those with you. And so you can use these or make them your own or create different ones, but learning how to create boundaries around not ingesting other people's fear, trauma, traumatic stories, etc., and finding your way to have boundaries to do this pregnancy and this birth in the way that is right for you, because that's going to be different from the way that it's right for me or anyone else. If you can find a way to do that and find a way to gracefully set boundaries, I feel like you're going to be more mentally resourced. Okay, so here's a couple little statements that I jotted down. First, this one's actually from the Holistic Psychologist on Instagram. First is, I've made the choice that works best for me, and I'm not looking for any feedback or advice. Next is, I appreciate you wanting to share your story with me. Right now, I'm very sensitive to other people's birth stories, so maybe you can share this with me another time. The third one is, and this is from Holistic Psychologist also, you might not agree with me, and that's okay. I trust I know what's best for me. That's a beautiful one, and I feel like you can honestly use that anytime, because people forget that unsolicited advice is not always welcome, and sharing their trauma with someone who's in the process of, growing a human being and preparing for birth is really not appropriate and not helpful, especially just speaking from experience as a currently pregnant human being. I'm very sensitive. Your sensitivity is heightened. And so you really want to be aware of other people's energies that you're ingesting, especially around fear and birth, and just making sure that you're clean and clear of that your space is truly your space. And only sharing your choices and decisions with people in your life that you know will be fully supportive, not project fear, trauma onto you. I've been very careful about who I share what with, who I share what choices I'm making with, and there's a reason for that, because I know not everyone agrees, and I don't necessarily need to have that conversation with everyone. Again, like that quote I read, you might not agree with me, and that's okay. I know what's best for me. I know what's best for my baby. I know what's best for my family, and it's going to be different from what's best for you, and that's totally okay. Okay. Number 6 is watch positive birth videos on YouTube. There's one amazing one I want to recommend. If you don't know Ellen Fisher, she has a beautiful YouTube channel, and her birth video with her 4th child, it reprogrammed my brain. It was such a peaceful, gorgeous example of just how peaceful and calm a birth can be. I think I've watched it probably 5 times because I just found it so moving. And she gives birth at home in a birthing tub on her back patio with a midwife, with her other children around. I was just like, I never even knew a birth could be like that. And so it was really beautiful. But there's tons of other videos on YouTube where you can find, other women who free birth or home birth. There's also lots of beautiful people on Instagram who have amazing positive Instagram accounts around birth. I'm actually going to look some up right now. First of all, Freebirth Society, she's amazing. Go Beyond Birthing, original_imprint_birth. Yolanda Norris Clark, who's at Bow Housewife, BAUHAUS wife. Primal_woman. Live Wild Birth Free. wild.pregnancy_freebirth. Free to Birth is another one. I believe there's another one called Pain-Free Birth. So anyways, I could go through tons more, but there are amazing Instagram accounts where you can watch really short, beautiful videos of birth. And in a way, sort of just for me, I felt I've been desensitizing myself from birth as well, getting used to seeing women birthing babies and in a peaceful environment, and having that become something that my mind is oh yeah, totally. Yeah. it's easy for me to watch. It's easy for me to see. Before, I feel like if I listened to birth stories or saw birth, I would get kind of sweaty and kind of queasy, and it was like really intense for me. So I've been preparing myself with sort of desensitizing myself in a positive way around seeing positive birth, seeing the placenta, seeing, real birth at home happening. And that way my mind is in a way prepared for that. And then the final thing I want to mention is conscious conception. And I'm going to do an entire video about conscious conception. But what my husband and I did was we created a little ceremony for ourselves. We lit some candles, we said some prayers, and we called in the spirit of our baby. And we just said, baby, we love you. We're ready for you when you're ready to come. Like, we are opening the portal and we are welcoming you to earth whenever it is your time. We had our way of just spiritually and mentally and emotionally opening that door and just saying, okay, when you're ready, we're here, we're holding the space for you, and we can't wait to meet you. And that was a really beautiful way to mentally prepare and just to sort of create an opening of being ready for that to happen and calling that soul in. So that was really, really special. Okay, so that is my list. So if you have any other tips or suggestions for how to mentally prepare for pregnancy or birth, add them in the comments below. I'm sure other women who are watching this would love to hear your suggestions as well. I've also created a video about all the ways I physically prepared myself for pregnancy and birth, which I think are extremely important as well. So I will link that video in the comments. If you're wanting support with integrating some of these practices and releasing fear and anxiety about pregnancy, I do one-on-one coaching, and I'll put the links for working with me in the description box. I will also put all the other links that I mentioned or for the companies and the podcasts and things like that below in the description box as well. So you can come visit me on Instagram. I would love to see you there. I'm at Erin with 2 N's. If you liked this video and it was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more content from me. I am sending you so much love and so many blessings on your personal journey with your pregnancy and birth, and just sending you so much love. Bye, friends. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on my next video.